Welcome to the Lead with Hope podcast. This podcast is dedicated to educators who need a little hope and inspiration. Today, I am going to be talking to the Dr. Tron Young. He's the principal at Joseph Arthur Middle School in O'Fallon, Illinois, and he is an inspirational educator, motivator, and 2020 Illinois Middle School Principal of the Year. Welcome, Tron.
Thank you, Brady. I appreciate having me on your podcast.
All right. I'm looking forward to talking to you today. And I want you to start out by telling our listeners about your story. How did you get started in education? What's your why?
Yeah, so I appreciate you asking that. So my why, I got started in education because of my fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Judy Truitt. She's my mother. She's my best friend. She's my mentor. Still to this day, any job I've had, especially as a principal at Centralia and O'Fallon, that first week she's walking through the halls, meeting the teachers and telling them, hey, if he doesn't do something right, you call me, let me know. But she inspired me to become an educator because of her love for teaching, but more importantly for kids. Like she made every single kid feel like they were special, unique, and she saw them for them. In my yearbook, fifth grade, she wrote, "You are amazing just the way you are, never change for anyone." And that just stood out to me. And so growing up, my mother worked from 3:30 at night to 5:30 in the morning at the factory. So if I was at a chorus concert, at a sporting event, Mrs. Judy Truitt was always in that stand cheering you on. If you were in the newspaper in high school, she would cut out the clipping. She would send it to you. She helped me get my first computer, go to college. She was one of the first people in the hospital when I had my baby. She sat next to my mother when I got married to my beautiful wife. So she's my why. Not only is she my why, because in education and in teaching, I had her. Then the very next year, I had an educator that almost made me commit suicide. And so at that time, I realized that teachers have the power to truly make a difference. They have a power to build or to destroy just by their words. And I wanted to be someone that created a culture and environment that builds kids, that lets them shoot for the moon. Even if they miss, they'll land among the stars.
I love that, Tron. Your story is powerful, and it just puts, reminds us of that importance of relationships in education. Yes. The relationships you build really do impact the trajectory of so many kids' lives. And is that how you came to your messaging of Be The Thermostat? I know you talk about, being the thermostat in your environment. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it is my belief as a leader, but just as an educator, that you should be the thermostat and not the thermometer. Be the one who sets the culture, sets the expectation, and not just reflects what's happening. We know in the world, everything changes and you can't make everyone happy and all that good stuff. But what you can control is your thermostat, right? You can control the temperature for which you come in. And it is how I developed that message, because going in, right? So for about 20 years, I've been in this thing called education and absolutely love it. And being a part of this thing called education, what I realized is that when you have educators that understand their purpose and their why, no matter what, you see them making a difference in kids' lives and you see that learning growing. But when you have people that are just operating off of the thermometer and going this way or that way, or the latest fad or the latest thing, and they're just jumping on it, then you see that there's always this unrest and this change, and there's this steady unbalance that they live in, right? So when you are the thermostat, you set the culture that does not reflect what is happening, but where you want to go, where you want your students to go, where you want your buildings to go, and you're operating off of that, and you have that understanding of where you want to go and why you want to get there.
That is so perfectly said, Tron. I love that messaging. And culture is so important in our schools today. And we were talking a little bit before we hit record today. We met about 10, 12 years ago. And I think we were just starting out as principals, as leaders. Yep. And we were figuring out, what do we value? What do we want to do in this thing called the principalship, right? Yes. And we have so much impact as school leaders, but I think it all starts with our sense of self-efficacy. And for me, that's what Lead with Hope is. It's a system of self-efficacy, which also impacts your leader efficacy. And for me, that acronym of HOPE, H stands for habits, O for optimistic outlook, P for passion, purpose, and perseverance, and E for excellence. So in your journey, what resonates with you most and why?
Man, so the O and the P really, really stands out to me. Optimistic outlook, because I'm not going to lie. After my first year as a principal, I was ready to get back into the classroom, right? Because in that classroom and those four walls, it was my fires, my journey, my influence, my passion that really drove students who want to be inside that classroom. I mean, I taught seventh grade math. In seventh grade math, I mean, either you like math or you hate math by the time you're in seventh grade. And you like it because you kind of get it and you're good at it, and you hate it because you struggled with it and it just doesn't make sense. So it was always my goal to create a classroom where students just enjoy being in. And if you enjoy being in that culture and that environment, you're going to want to learn no matter what. So as I became a principal and realized, wait, I'm handling all these fires and all these situations of people that I didn't cause, that are not my own. I was used to like teaching a lesson and that aha, that light bulb. And as a leader, I realized it's not about the now, it's about the where, right? So it's not about what's going on now. It's about where you want to lead your building towards, what type of building you want to create and you want to have, and having these benchmarks along the way, but having this goal of where you want your ability to go. So getting into that principalship, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to create this and this. And I did not like it until I talked to my best friend who's an HR director for GE. And she's like, well, what's your building goals? Where do you want your building to be 5 years from now? I was like, And once I realized, hey, stop operating off of fires and start setting goals to where you want to get to and create a plan to get there, I was like, all right, so when you talked to me in October, I probably was like, is this thing really something I want to do? I want to get back in the classroom. But then once I created that, I realized that I had to get to my purpose as a leader. And that purpose aligns to my passion. But what I truly believe is purpose trumps passion when your passion wanes, right? And so you have to have the both of them, but that purpose and that passion gets to that perseverance, right? And so that purpose remains the same, but your passions can fluctuate based off of where your building need to go, or based off what you need to do as a leader, where that passion gets into that you dig in, that like, oh my gosh, we need to learn about higher order questioning. So I'm going to be very passionate about learning about that, about leading about that. But the purpose is because I want my students to achieve in a classroom that's innovative, that's rigorous, and that's full of excitement and rigor. So that purpose stays the same, but that passion changes based off of where I believe we need to go and what we need to do. That kind of flows with that culture, right? But that purpose still remains the same. And that gets to that perseverance, because you got to persevere through some of the things, through people not understanding the what, the why, and the how. But once you get there, and then you realize that, guess what? When you're in this leadership, that's when your purpose and your passion aligns.
Yes, that alignment is so powerful. And when you truly know what your purpose and your passion is, that's how you prioritize your time.
Yes.
And your people see where you are spending your time and what matters to you. And that's what drives change.
Oh, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, Tron, when we met, we were both early principals, and, looking back, in time, what is it that we can do, those of us who have a little bit more experience under our belt now, to impact education in such a way that we can attract more leaders? Because we know we need them. We need good, strong principals. What is it? The average principal stays in that role about 4 years and then moves on.
Yep.
Yeah. What can we do to impact education and attract good leaders for our schools?
Yep. So the first thing I need to do is, one, I say thank you, because I feel like what we're doing now is part of it. That narrative has to change. That image of what a principal looks like, sounds like, feels like, it has to change. Like, as leaders, I don't think we make this job look attractive, right? As leaders, we talk about the struggles and the pains. And like, if you walk through a building and your teacher will say, oh, I wouldn't want your job in a million years, right? You couldn't pay me enough to handle your job. Why? It's because how we make this job look, right? What we endorse to our staff, to our parents, to our school community says a lot, right? So the question is like, are we And I always ask people this, right? So if I go do speaking and training, especially to leaders, I ask, if you had the opportunity to make this decision again, would you still choose principalship? Because that says a lot. And the second question I ask is, if your son, your daughter came to you and said, hey, I want to be a teacher, what would your response be? Because it breaks my heart when I hear people in education say their kid said that they want to be an educator and they said they talked them out of it. You've done something that your kid believes this role and what you do is so meaningful that they want to continue your legacy as an educator, and you're convincing them otherwise. We've got to change that. We have to change that in order for the community and our nation at large to change that narrative, right? And so I truly believe, like, we just need to do this image campaign, right? Like, we need to make sure that, like, when I'm walking down, like, if someone asks me, hey, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I'm a middle school principal. Da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, ooh, man, I'm a sick of special character. You're absolutely right. Special to love kids, to inspire kids, and to motivate them to be better tomorrow than they are today. Like, I have my message. I have my 30-second elevator pitch. And my wife's like, why are you always talking? I said, because if it's okay for this lawyer to talk about what they do and this psychologist and da-da-da-da-da, I'm going to pitch and talk about what I do every time I can, because I believe we have one of the most important jobs, one of the most meaningful jobs, but one of the most appreciated jobs until you're needed, right? Until that crisis come and everybody's like, oh, praise educators. As soon as we went out of that, they're like, oh, teachers don't do anything. I'm like, wait, what? What happened to this? It's because what we say and how we put that here. And I just think it's important for us to make sure that we highlight the work that we do. And that doesn't mean that we're not honest, right? I don't want toxic positivity. There are challenges, there are hurdles, there are those things. But when I make my list, my pros definitely outweigh my cons.
Yeah, it's such a meaningful profession that we're in, and we have such a powerful impact on so many, many lives. But you're absolutely right. Your words matter, and we have to set the tone and share the stories, you know, the good and the bad, but we don't spend enough time focusing on the good, and there is so much good out there.
I totally agree.
Absolutely. So, Tron, talk to us a little bit about your most recent project. What are you doing right now?
So there's so many things, but I would say outside of my school building, one thing that I am really proud of the work we're doing is 3 years ago, I started a state conference called the I Grow Summit. And that is to grow and retain more teachers and leaders of color. We know that education itself does not reflect the clientele or the students that we have in the workforce as teachers and leaders. And part of what I did was about 3 years ago, all the state organizations, ISBE, IPA, IEA, IFT, ISBO, like all of them had these, like, we want this diverse work field learner platform, but they were operating in silos or had statements but was doing nothing to do that. And so I proposed to them is a summit, right? And our summit is to, I believe, to recruit more teachers and leaders of color. You first have to grow and retain the ones that you have to create a platform for people to feel like there's a space for them. It was alarming that I was on the Deputy Governor's P20 Council as one of the co-chairs for the teacher shortage. And one thing we were talking about is things that are working in our state. And we highlighted that the minority teacher grant program was working to get people in. But then at the same breath, they said, but after 65% of the educators of color complete their 5-year residency, they either leave our state or no longer are teachers. And I was like, wait a minute, back up. What are we doing for this? Like, there's a cause. And we talk about if it was because of the retirement, if it's because of this. I'm like, but if we have this system that they are invested in and they continue to grow throughout this, man. And so my first year in 2022, we had about 75 educators. Last year, we had about 150 teachers and leaders of color. And this year, we already got registration started. That's in the summer in June. We already got about 25 people registered, and I'm super excited to be able to do this. We're focusing on our pre-service teachers this year to get those teachers who are in college to be connected into individuals who are already in this field that are looking to change that narrative that we could say, hey, no, here is a field of educators that love what they do, that want to grow with what they do, and look to mentor you and support you as you go into this thing that we love called education. So I'm really, really excited about that work that we're doing. even so much that I've helped the state of Washington start iGrow Washington, and we are doing that in April of 2024. So there's this momentum that is happening that I'm really, really excited and proud of.
That is awesome. That is awesome. Now, if our listeners are interested in learning more about that program, how can they find more information?
Yep. So if you're interested in it, you can on the internet, it's hashtag IL Summit. So if you want to hashtag it there, or go to the Illinois Principals, ilprincipals.org/iGrow Summit. It is on the website. They are our host for that. You can do registration there. Teachers, leaders, pre-service teachers. We had everyone from board members last year to superintendents, principals, teachers, bus drivers, all at this summit last year. We hosted in Bloomington, Illinois, which is kind of central for our state. To get all of our state, it's June 23rd, 24th. Or you can reach out to me on Twitter, X, or Instagram at Tron to the number 2, the word teach, the number 4, and the letter U. Tron to teach for you.
Tron, you are an amazing educator, and we are so fortunate to have you in the field. I appreciate you coming on the podcast today, and I look forward to hearing more about what you're doing and following you on social media, your videos with your kids. That's fun to watch. And I know you're out there doing speaking engagements and a lot of other work on the side. How do you juggle all of the things that you've got going on?
Yeah, so one thing that I do is I listen to my wife, first of all.
Yeah, you're a smart man.
And the reason why I say that is because she understands my passion. She understands my purpose, but she also knows that part of my passion, part of my purpose is also being a father and a husband. And so as I'm out there pouring into others, she always tells me, hey, make sure you don't dip out of your bucket for everyone else and don't have anything left for your family. And so when we do that, I am very, very clear on, like, if it's a holiday and we don't have school, then I'm not doing school things. I'm not doing school work. I've turned the email notifications off on my phone so that I have to go to my email and it's not, hey, here's this ding and I'm always going to check. So doing some of that balance, having those times where it's like, okay, this is family time. So there's days like Sundays is family day. So like we don't do anything unless it's as a family, and really building into that. So keeping that communication open with my wife and making sure she'll tell me, hey, wait a minute. We need some of you too. And being like understanding that is. And I think that is so crucial because I grew up without a dad. And so I think I always ask people, especially educators, to draw a circle. And in that circle, put a piece of pie for everything that they identify who they are. And it's alarming when you have educators do that. And when half of their pie or more is what they do as a teacher or in education. And I'm like, don't forget, you are a mother, a father, a friend, a sister, a brother, a niece, an uncle, a softball player, or like all these pieces. And I think we get lost in that, and we have this like, oh, you need to be on 24/7 kind of deal that people get burned out, people get frustrated, people don't have that balance in their life. And so we have new teachers who are leaving, or people are like, well, they didn't show up for this event. Don't you know that's part of the job? No, we can have that conversation. But what would happen is, say, if we have 5 school-wide events that we want you to be a part of, can you select 2 of them that we ask you to be a part of? Because we know that you are a brother or a sister, so we ask you to show up for 2, right? Life is busier, and we have this 24/7 access. So making sure that we put up our own guardrails to make sure that not only are we an educator, but we also are all those other parts of who we are in our life.
Yeah, and I think that messaging about wellness and balance and priorities is so important for educators. And we've got to do a better job as leaders to normalize the fact that your family has to come first.
Yes.
I've said that my entire career, and I truly believe that. For me, it's faith, family, and then education or work.
Amen.
Absolutely. And we have to normalize that.
Yep.
Yeah. We cannot be martyrs and just give and give and give and give and not have anything for our family. So I'm glad that you talked about that. As we're wrapping up here today, can you remind our listeners how they can connect with you? Because they need to connect with you.
Yeah, I'm on all major social media platforms. Facebook, just Tron Young. LinkedIn, Tron Young. And then on Twitter and on Instagram, Tron to Teach for You. Tron, the number 2, the word teach, the number 4, the letter U is where I'm at. Or you can go to my website, www.tronyoung.com.
All right, Tron, thank you so much for coming on today. It was fun talking to you, and have a happy Saturday.
Thank you so very much. I truly enjoyed it, and thank you for continuing messaging the image of education and what we do.
Absolutely, so very important. Leading with Hope is an intentional practice requiring self-reflection and self-awareness. Check out my website at leadwithhope.net and subscribe to my monthly newsletter. My newsletter provides 3 tips, 2 quotes, and 1 question that will help you build self-efficacy and lead with hope. Thanks for tuning in today, and have a great day.